for discussion. And we have a very wonderful personality too in our mix today. And she is in the person of Henriette Tabe. She is a corporate lawyer, a business and a corporate lawyer in two jurisdictions, that is in Nigeria and Cameroon. And she comes from Cameroon. And the topic for today's discussion is premised on how can the law provide for equality and equity? You know, I think most of the times you might be wondering what is the difference between equality and equity, and how does the law come into to regulate these two three concepts. So without wasting much time, I'll proceed to introduce our guest for today, and she is in the person of lawyer Henriette Tabe, as I've already said. So, Mrs.
Morning, good afternoon, good evening to the entire world. I am most humble and privileged to educate the public today on some minor issues. We might think that equality and equity, they are minor issues being left behind. But when you look into it, like most jury students, when you want to go into the topic of equality and equity, you see that it is very broad and it's very, very important. So I want to take it. What's equality? We always hear equal rights, equal, something to be equal. It's in the same lane. Each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. Why equity is that each person has different circumstances and is able to allocate the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. Yeah. So many people ask, is everyone equal under the law? Because that's the question. You see a commoner on the road, they'll say equality, justice, is everybody equal under the law? Article 7, let me quote you, Article 7 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states that all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. Is because when we are teaching, when you are like passing on a message, you are in the classroom to young jurists, students do always come up with questions from every direction below to them. As a lawyer, as a lawmaker, how do they define you? By what you speak with facts, proven facts that are right and are straight to the point. Another question that they may ask on equity: can an individual or a group of persons have both equality and equity? To an extent, I would say yes, but in different aspects. This is how it's going to look like. Equality and equity may be somehow different, but are also bound together. I'm talking as if I'm talking economics, but mind. Equity is needed to ensure that everyone has the same chance of getting there. When we want to talk about equality, Act is a bill in the United States that indicates their law. We have bills. People from discrimination in the work, and it replaces previous. This Equality Act replaces the anti-discrimination law with a single act, making the law easier to understand and strengthening protection in some situations. So while we are like, let me say, lecturers trying to teach your young people, yeah, they may ask you, what is one's responsibility under the Equality Act? This Equality Act that we are talking about, that is a bill in the United States Congress that was passed to amend the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which replaces the Discrimination Act. Yeah. What is one's responsibility under the Equality Act? I tell you this. This act protects you against discrimination in the workplace at all stages of employment. This might include recruitment, employment terms and conditions, training, payment and benefits, promotion and transfer opportunities. To an extent, dismissal or redundancy. But when we want to talk about this, we cannot go because it's actually a broad something. But we got to get the purpose. What's the purpose of this act? The Equality Act. The purpose of this Equality Act or equality law is to harmonize equality law and make it easier to understand and reinforce protection in some situations. That's the main purpose. Okay. This act was created to advance equality of opportunity between people who share a protected characteristics and those who do not. And those who do not share the protected characteristics. And to foster good relations between those who share a protected characteristic and those who do not. So us now as learned counsels, lawyers, magistrates, both nationals and internationals, what we'll talk about this Equality Act. Okay. What legislation did they introduce? As I earlier said, most of the Equality Act of 2010 was already in place. It didn't replace it. It was in place, but wasn't in practice. But it came and replaces the anti-discrimination law. This includes the Race Relations Act of 1976, the Sex Discrimination Act of 1975, and the Disability Discrimination Act of 1995. Yeah, that's what the Equality Act came and replaces. Are we there?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Also, if we want to know, we can educate the public like, are we all equal before the law? That's a good question everybody will ask. But I want to tell you that equality before the law is a fundamental principle of the rule of law, as we all know it. Everyone is subject to the same law, no matter who they are, and is treated equally by the court. Yes. Everyone is supposed to be treated equally by the court. Then you want to talk about equity. Equity is mostly, you find it in criminal law. Yes. When you want to see the rule of equity, we take it to criminal law. In criminal law, many practices are done to try and achieve equity, where every person is given a fair and impartial trial. Oh. The complication with equity is that people often disagree on what is just or fair. These are subjective concepts, yeah, and as a result, laws and policies that attempt to achieve equity are often challenged in court or are highly controversial. Yeah. For example, the American idea of affirmative action. But come to compare equality to equity. Equity was found slightly earlier in the written records. For example, in modern times, the usage of the word equity has increased due to concerns about social justice and a desire for fairness for historical oppressed groups. But ideally, we will be able to achieve both equality and equity when it comes to the law and society. But this is usually very, very difficult. Yeah. Any question?
Okay. Yes. Whisper, thank you so much for the enlightenment, and educating the public when it comes to some of these distinctions that you need to know. But I have a question that I would like to put forward. So you made reference to the UDHR, which talks about equality, and I think that particular treaty, should I say, that declaration, it has assumed the position of customary international law, and it is not binding. But now, once a state intends not to issue any caveat with respect to any proposition in that law, you are bound to go by it. And many countries have gone or have taken most of that declaration into their national laws. So will you say that individuals, and you made it clear that when it comes to the law equality, people must be treated equally so far the law is concerned. Will you say that the way and manner in which a politician, for instance, let me say a minister, will be treated is the same way as a mere civilian will be treated if they commit the same, let me say, offense or tortious act or any other way? Is it the way it is in practice, or in theory it is very good, but in practice it is something different?
Okay. If I've heard you well, I'm going to say that everybody equal the law. Everybody is equal before the law. The equality. What was the responsibility of this Equality Act that was passed? It was to protect you against discrimination in the workplace. For instance, if you take that minister, you know what? I'm so sorry to say, in most Africa, most of the Equality Acts of 2010, it was there to replace the anti-discrimination law which include the Relation Act of 1976, the Sex Discrimination Act of 1970.
Please, lawyer, I think we have to unmute. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think we can move on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. What I was saying is everybody is The law is not no respecter of person, no matter who you are in the society. As far as we are the bosses in our courts, you can't have an issue and you come look for a lawyer and you are the one educating the lawyer on what he or she got to defend you in court. We are the bosses. When it comes to ministers and politicians and the common man, everybody is equal above the law and must be treated fairly. Yes, that's why you say about this the Article 7 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which state all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. Yes, we must be treated with fairness, no matter who we are in the society. If a commoner can be able to present he or herself in court, it means he is up. We all know how our courts are today. As I speak, we all know what we are going through in our courts, what the common man is going through in our courts. If he is in trial with a minister or a politician, they must both be treated well. And the counsel in charge must try his or herself to see how to defend them, no matter who you are. Yeah. That's why they say equality and equity might be slightly different, but are also bound together. But in order to create true equality of opportunity, equity is needed to ensure that everyone has the same chance of getting what he or she demands, he or she needs. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this clarification, because I was actually wondering in saying that if there's a principle that primus inter pares, okay, to the extent that we only have equality among equals. And I think there's this professor, Sir Ivor Dennis, also postulated same in one of his writings, that there's no equality amongst everyone, but you have equality among equals. And that is why I asked that particular question. And I think you'll be able to reposition it to mean that equity must also come in order to resolve these issues of equality. If I do get it correctly.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome. Then I think we can proceed at this point in time. Whenever the question come up again, then we ask, or I should proceed with any other question that I have.
Yeah, you can proceed.
Okay, I need a little bit understanding, a clarification when you said that equity is, when you talk about equity, it's more of attached to criminal law or criminal issues where one have to be tried justly or unjustly. Can you clarify that? Or I want more elaboration on that.
Okay. Equity in a broader sense, we can get it in criminal, it can be demonstrated in criminal law, as I earlier said. How? In criminal law, many practices are done to try and achieve equity, where every person is given a fair and impartial trial. This one now will depend on your lawyer in question, on your attorney in question. Yeah. The complication with equity is that people often disagree on what is just or fair. But come to think of it, these are all subjective concepts, and as a result, laws and policies.
Hello? Hello?
Most written.
Okay. Okay.
Then let me just to add, in modern times, the usage of the word equity increased due to concerns about social justice and a desire for fairness. This was mostly for historically oppressed groups. Yeah.
Okay. That's very wonderful. Thank you so much once again. But is it possible for equity to find its way in trust issues, which are also, for instance, equity and trust. You know, some of these law faculties, most especially in the common law jurisdictions, at a third degree, you are taught equity and trust, and most of the times, it's not more of criminal cases centered. You can get civil where these equity issues comes up. So is it possible for us to have this element of equity in civil cases too as well, or it is absolutely, you know, criminal law issues?
Yeah,
Hello?
please take your question all.
Take it again. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening. Yes, I'm
Yes.
listening. Please take it all over again.
Okay. Okay. So I'm saying that you know, some of most especially in the common law jurisdictions, you know, at the undergraduate level, when you are even studying your law for the LLB, you are being taught equity and trust. It is a course on its own, and there are most of the instances you see cases where it is a civil matter. You know, maybe I'm dying, I've entrusted you, I've made a will, I've entrusted a trustee to make ABCD for the beneficiary and all those kind of things. So is it possible, so I'm saying that, is it possible for us to have equity issues in absolute civil matters, or equity is premise when it comes to the proving of equity, what is equitable is only limited to criminal?
Yeah.
Please, is it clear now?
Yes, if I can get you, though it's breaking. My network is somehow breaking.
Okay.
Yeah. That's why we say in common law, equity and equality are often used interchangeably. Equality and equity are quite different. There is often a common misconception that equity and equality mean the same thing and that they can be used interchangeably, especially when talking about education. But the truth is just that they cannot. Equity alone is in a broader it is very broad. That's why we say law, as I earlier said, or a common man will ask you, is everyone equal? Before we cannot talk about it without talking about equity. Equality before the fundamental principle of the rule of law as we know it. Everyone is subject to the same law, different from the common law and the civil law jurisdiction. But come to think of it, compared to ideally, we will be able to achieve both equality and equity when it comes to the law and the society. It's usually very, very difficult to achieve both.
Wow, wow. Yes, I'm very much satisfied with your answer, and I don't have any other questions for now. Maybe you can proceed, or you can wind up if you still have you don't have much to say for now. But if you have much to say, you can proceed. We have less than 10 minutes to conclude the program. Um,
So our topic was how can the law provide for equality? Then added to it, like if you want to make at the same time without one understanding the other.
okay.
That's why I came up with a question
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Or have an idea of the
I can hardly hear you. I can hardly hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay. How can the law see an equity? Someone will come and say, with this question, how can the law? Then to an extent, and at the same time, without one understanding the other. If the law can provide for equality and equity, at the same time, without understanding the other, how do you mean? I mean, someone will see ask you, can someone have both equality and equity? That's the question in another dimension. I would say to an extent, because equality and equity may be inherently different, but are also bound together. In order to create true equality of opportunities, equity is needed to ensure that everyone has the same chance of getting there. So you see that both works together. Equality cannot work alone. Equity must contribute. Equity can't work alone. Equality must somehow contribute in its own little way. Both, they're slightly joined together.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Please, I do enjoy your lecture and the clarifications with respect to this area of law, where we sometimes intend to misconstrue or misinterpret these two concepts, equality and equity. And I think it's opened our eyes, it enlightened us on these two concepts. You know, fairness is equity basically is premised on fairness, and equality is what you, every individual is required to get. And in order to achieve these two aims, these two concepts must always work together. And please, I hope what I heard or what I've just said is actually the case. So
yeah,
that is true. So that will be your summary for the entire program for today, right? Or
yeah, I can say yeah for a start today, yeah. But I promise to always be there, provided the time. I have the time. Yeah.
I know you're a very busy person working up and down, but I'm so much grateful for the considerable latitude you've offered me to be on the show. I'm so much grateful, and our viewers are also much grateful. So to the viewers, you know, you've listened to the prominent personality I was talking about. You know, she's a lawyer, a corporate lawyer, a business and a corporate lawyer. She practices in Nigeria, in Cameroon, and she gave us this wonderful lecture all the way from Cameroon. And I am also your host for today, as usual, based in Rwanda. You know, we are so much grateful for joining us today. And lawyer, please have a wonderful Friday ahead and enjoy the rest of your day. And to our dear, lovely viewers, we thank you so much for watching us. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm most humble.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.